if it really becomes land for peace. Look, I think it's very important that when a country rejects peace, as the Palestinians did in 38, that they get less in 48. When they reject peace and invade Israel, they get less after 48. When in 67 they rejected the 242, they get less. When they rejected Camp David and engaged in the Intifada, they get less. I believe it's very important for international deterrence of violence for countries to get less after they have used violence other than as an alternative to negotiation. But I think that there can be a viable Palestinian state in 100% of the Gaza, the 97% of the West Bank, with land exchanges that would create at least the symmetry of land for land. But it has to be land for peace, not land for rocket launchings, and not land for kidnappings, and not land for terrorism. And for that, you're going to need some international assurances, probably some monitoring. It won't just happen by itself, because the Palestinian Authority refuses to disarm its terrorists. It absolutely refuses to do that. Even the leader of the Palestinian Authority today, Abbas, will not disarm Hezbollah or Islamic Jihad. And until that happens, land for peace becomes very difficult.
You want to come back? Now, there actually are people in the back, and I noticed the microphones are in the front, but I have someone right here.
Oops, sorry.
Hello, Professor Dershowitz.
Hi, how are you?
First of all, I'd like to congratulate you on your leadership. You're just luminescent and very helpful. I have a...
It sounds like a positive question.
I don't mean to be positive.
Okay.
In your book, Chutzpah, you made a remarkable point. You said that anti-Semitism as a term is outdated, and
That's
you
right.
suggested a term which I don't think is a very good one, which is Judeo-path.
Judeo-phobia, yeah,
Judeo-phobia.
Right.
And here are my assumptions. One is you already said that the media isn't really giving us a fair shake. I say us, pardon me. The fair shake is not being given to the situation. The second is that I assume that you lead a community of some fairly broad-minded folk who can come up with better words. Here's my question. Isn't there a way that we can represent the difference between folks who build and construct and contribute to communities and contribute to the growth of civilization, and folks who do the opposite? Isn't there a way that you can help, or that all of us can together create new terms that aren't the old terms when the whole world's being reinvented with words like Skype and Kazaa and every other new type of term? Couldn't you help us find new ways to talk about this so that we can try to get an upper hand on the media?
One of my friends here today is one of the world's great linguists, Professor Steven Pinker. Maybe he can help us with coming up with some new words and find out whether they're part of the kind of core human evolutionary function of words. I think it's going to be very hard to do that. Let me talk about the media for 1 second. I didn't have a chance to rebut this part of President Carter's statement. You know, his statement that the American media does not cover the situation of the Palestinians is not only false, it's provably false. So I want to give you all a homework assignment. I want you all to go home today after this is over, and I want you to Google Palestinians and then compare all the other occupied and disenfranchised groups in the world. The Kurds, the Armenians, the Chechens, the Tibetans, the people of parts of Africa. You will find, because I've done this, that more attention is paid to the Palestinians, 10 times more attention, than to all of the other disenfranchised groups in the world combined. The Palestinians get more attention from the American media, more attention at the UN, more attention on American college campuses. Something else he didn't mention, the rampant anti-Israel attitudes on most American college campuses, from Columbia to Berkeley. You can't make the case for Israel on many of those campuses, and yet he thinks, President Carter thinks, that you can't make any arguments for the situation of Palestinians. Read the newspapers. Go to Google. You will see he is categorically wrong, just empirically and factually wrong, and there's no excuse for that.
A very brief response per your invitation. You know, if you go on YouTube, it's the exact same thing. It's an impossible environment for Israel. Couldn't you suggest a way that we can find at least 1 or 2 new terms to describe the division of the world as it happens right now?
Well, I don't like words like that. I'll tell you why. Even implicit in your question, there's the suggestion that there are the good groups and the not-so-good groups. Look, there are plenty of bad Jews and plenty of bad Israelis. I fight them all the time. The Israelis who say God gave us this land and we're not going to leave an inch. The Israelis who fomented the killing of Prime Minister Rabin. There are very, very bad people among Israelis and among Jews, and there are very, very good people among Palestinians, among Arabs. Article in today's paper about the father of a young 10-year-old who was killed accidentally during an Israeli response to terrorism, working closely with an Israeli soldier to bring about peace. So I think I reject the premise of your question. I don't want new words to create categories of people. I would rather work on continua, work on issues that are more nuanced, rather than creating even more categories. But I appreciate your question.
I want someone to get a microphone to that lady who's standing up and doing it very well. And then I'm going to move over here.
This actually ties in kind of well to your response to the last question.
Thank you.
Because it's a response to what you were saying in your intro about Carter's oversimplification of some complex issues and generalization. And I was a little bit concerned myself about some statements that you made, and maybe you can elaborate on them and take away some of the generalizations that you made. You used the word they. They cheer when rockets go over their heads. They do this, they do that. I just thought that was an interesting way to describe an entire people, something that I don't think anyone in this room would agree is a way to describe an entire people as one entity.
I accept your correction.
In addition, your discussion of Hamas was interesting to me because I've been following the news, and within Hamas, I'm sure you'll agree, there's been a lot of argument, there's been a lot of dissension between extremists who are still very anti-Israel, anti-Jewish state, and between leaders who, whatever their personal opinions about a Jewish state may be, accept that getting rid of a Jewish state is not fungible, that in the world that we live in today, there must be negotiation. Mm-hmm. And so to harken back to 1938 and say there could have been a Palestinian state then, but people rejected it, to say in 1967 there could have been a Palestinian state, but people rejected it, is ignoring the fact that mistakes have been made on both sides. But that does not mean that today there are not Palestinian leaders and leaders within Hamas and leaders within the current elected government who are willing to negotiate and who are not looking for the complete dissolution of the Israeli state, which I don't think anyone in this room would be in favor of in the first place.
Oh, no, I'm not so sure. Well, maybe not in this room, but you know, all you have to do is look to NYU. Tony Judd is in favor of the complete dissolution of the State of Israel. Many other American academics. I would say on American college campuses, there are plenty of people who are in favor of the total dissolution. I completely agree with you about your first correction. I should not have used the word they. I was following a television image where you saw cheering Palestinians as the rockets went overhead. But they is wrong. Many of them, a large number of them, I don't know the percentage. I completely and fundamentally disagree with you about Hamas. Yes, there are two groups. They are the extremists, those are what you would call the moderates, and then there are the genocidal murderers. The moderates... The moderates are the ones...
I don't think I was defending Hamas. I'm saying
No, I understand.
The way that the world is today, Hamas is who we are dealing with, that is the current government, and I also found it disturbing that you said that there should be a new election in which Hamas is defeated.
That's right.
It sounds like you want the outcome of the democratic election to be decided ahead of time.
Absolutely.
So,
and I also would have liked to see an election in 1934 where Hitler was defeated. You wouldn't have. You would be happy with the outcome? I mean, no. I mean, we're entitled to take sides on elections. I want to see Chavez defeated. I want to see Castro defeated. I want to see Hitler defeated. I want to see Pol Pot defeated. I want to see all horrible dictators defeated. Want to talk about the United States? I can give you some views on that one, too. But we're not talking about that now. But yes, I want to see Hamas defeated. I want to see Hamas defeated because the so-called moderates are simply people who are willing to say, let's accept a hudna. Then they quote Muhammad, who says a hudna is a truce that you break when you feel you're at a tactical advantage in breaking it. And yes, I do believe that the Hamas moderates want to see the destruction of the state of Israel, and Hamas has to be resoundingly defeated. Having said that, I said there ought to be negotiations with Hamas, but there ought not to be economic grants to Hamas. There ought not to be economic grants. As long as the Palestinians will vote for Hamas, they should not get a penny of aid. They have to bear the consequences of their free electoral vote. When you vote for tyrants and dictators and Nazis and Islamo-fascists, you pay the consequences of those votes. That is moral responsibility. And yes, I want to see Hamas defeated.
I don't think she was going to vote for Hitler in 1930.
Of course not. Now, and by the way, I didn't say vote for, I said be satisfied with the outcome of any democratic election. That, just because you support democracy does not mean you do not want an outcome that favors liberty and that favors structural democracy. Anybody who has strong values should favor outcomes of elections, whether in this country or anywhere else.
You won't have a vote in that election, as I understand.
No.
Please.
I have a question about Iran. It was recently revealed in the news this past 2 weeks, I'd say, that in 2003, Iran offered to help stop funding Hamas and Hezbollah and to help the U.S. with aid in Iran, and that this was rejected, vetoed by Vice President Dick Cheney. This was just recently revealed. But in lieu of this information and the fact that Iran has one of the most vibrant youth cultures in the world...
Iraq or Iran? I'm not...
Iran.
Iran. Okay.
Iran.
Right.
The fact that Iran has one of the most vibrant youth cultures in the world that is very critical of their current leader... Right. It seems to me that you're the one, you criticize Carter for making oversimplifications about the situation. Right. It seems to me like you're making a large oversimplification about the motives and situations in Iran that is a vibrant situation that is not nearly as stagnant as you suggest, or anti-Israel completely throughout, as you might suggest.
No, I agree with that. And by the way, Germany had an incredibly vibrant youth culture during 1933, 1934, 1935. It didn't work. In the end, the youth culture was sent to Dachau and murdered. And we're seeing that happening today. Look at what happened to the youth culture at the University of Tehran. They all were arrested and put in jail. So yes, one of the reasons I do not favor at this point in time a preemptive attack on Iran is because it would unite all the elements in Iran against external enemies. I want to see the dynamics operate within Iran. Yes, I favor an overthrow of the Iranian government. Yes, I would like to see a revolution. Yes, if there were an election, I would like to see the current president of Iran defeated for office. I would like to see him in prison for incitement to genocide. And I am filing a brief today with Erwin Cutler, making the case for incitement to genocide. Just because you believe in democracy doesn't mean that you think everyone who wins an election deserves your support. Even in this country, we all believe in democracy, but I don't believe the current administration deserves my support. Even though they weren't even elected democratically the first time around. But we'll get to that some other time.
Can I have a brief follow-up?
Oh, please, follow up.
Yeah. Just a brief one. So my other question is about nuclear weapons. In relation to that, though, how can we, as Israel having nuclear weapons, and America being the only nation to ever have used nuclear weapons in the world, deny that to a nation that might legitimately feel threatened by our critical stance towards them and our antagonistic attitude towards them?
Very simple. When a country says, as Rafsanjani said a couple of years ago, as the president of Iran, if we get the atomic bomb, we will drop it on Tel Aviv, we will kill 5 million Jews, they will then retaliate and drop it on Tehran and kill 20 million Muslims, and we will benefit because there are more of us than them. They don't get to get the bomb. Countries that threaten to annihilate other countries don't get to get the bomb. Just because the police have guns doesn't mean we give guns to every criminal. You make distinctions between who gets the bomb. And Israel has made it clear that, remember, it has never used the bomb. It has never even acknowledged it has the bomb. Everybody knows it does. It didn't use it in 1973 when its back was against the wall. Israel needs the bomb. Israel's only security is that it must be stronger than every Arab and Islamic